8:05 a.m. That was the time glowing on the digital clock on the wall. Red numbers, unforgiving numbers. Marcus Sterling stared at them. He didn't blink. He didn't move. He sat in his leather chair, the one that cost more than most people's cars, and tapped his pen against the mahogany desk. Tap, tap, tap. Every tap was a second of stolen time. The heavy oak door pushed open. Sarah stumbled in. Her hair was wind-blown. Her raincoat was dripping water onto the pristine gray carpet. She was out of breath, her chest heaving, clutching her purse like a shield. "I am so sorry, Mr. Sterling. The elevators, they were backed up and—" Marcus held up a hand. He didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on the clock. 8:06 a.m., you're late. Sarah froze. She took a step forward, the water from her coat making a small, dark circle on the floor. I know, sir, it's just. The rain is terrible out there and I had to drop my son off and—" Marcus finally turned his chair. He looked at her. There was no anger in his face. That would have been easier. Anger is human. Anger implies you care. Marcus looked at her the way a scientist looks at a broken microscope. "We have a policy, Sarah. I know, but zero tolerance. Punctuality is not a suggestion. It is the foundation of discipline. If you cannot manage your own time, you cannot manage my schedule." Sarah's hands started to shake. She gripped the strap of her purse tighter. "Please, Mr. Sterling, it was 5 minutes. It won't happen again. I promise. I really need this job, my son. He has appointments next week and I need the insurance and you're fired." The words hung in the air, cold, simple, final. Sarah opened her mouth but no sound came out. She looked at the clock. 8:07 a.m., 2 minutes of conversation. That's all it took to destroy her life. She looked at Marcus. She was searching for something, a crack in the armor, a hint of a soul. She found nothing. Marcus turned back to his computer screens. He started typing. He didn't look up when she started to cry. He didn't look up when she turned around. He didn't look up until the door clicked shut. He checked his watch. 8:08 a.m. Schedule clear. He thought he had solved a problem. He thought he had cut out a weak link. He had no idea that he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. And he had no idea that someone else had been watching. Sarah didn't remember the elevator ride down. She didn't remember walking through the marble lobby of the Sterling Tower. She only woke up when the cold Chicago rain hit her face. It felt like a slap. She stood on the sidewalk, pedestrians rushing past her with their umbrellas, bumping her shoulders, not even saying sorry. She was invisible. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. 3 missed calls from the landlord. She couldn't answer them, not now. She walked to the bus stop and sat on the wet metal bench. She didn't have a car. She had sold it 3 months ago to pay for Leo's asthma medication. That's why she was late, the bus. But that wasn't the whole truth. She closed her eyes and saw the image from 40 minutes ago, the parking garage. She had been running. She was going to make it. She had 5 minutes to spare. But then she saw him, an old man. He was wearing a gray suit that looked a little too big for him. He was leaning against a concrete pillar, clutching his chest. His umbrella had blown away, skittering across the oil-stained floor. Most people walked right past him. They were busy. They were important. They were on Sterling time, but Sarah couldn't do it. She stopped. She asked if he was okay. He couldn't speak at first. He just pointed to his pocket. She reached in. Nitro pills. She opened the bottle, her hands shaking, and placed one under his tongue. She stayed with him. She held his hand until the color came back to his face, until his breathing steadied. He tried to thank her. She just smiled, checked her watch, and felt her stomach drop. She ran. She ran all the way to the elevator, but it was too late. Now, sitting on the bus bench, the tears finally came hot and fast. She had traded her job for a stranger's safety, and the world didn't care. The world punished her for it. Her phone buzzed in her hand, a text from her sister. "Leo needs new inhalers. Can you pick them up on your way home?" Sarah stared at the screen until the letters blurred. They cost $40. She had $12 in her bank account. Her next paycheck wasn't coming. She looked up at the towering glass building across the street, the Sterling Tower. It pierced the clouds like a needle. Somewhere on the top floor, Marcus Sterling was drinking his imported coffee, proud of his efficiency. She wiped her face. She had to go home. She had to tell her 6-year-old son that mommy messed up again. But what Sarah didn't know was that the old man in the parking garage wasn't just a random stranger, and the cameras in the garage weren't just recording cars. That night Marcus couldn't sleep. This was rare for him. Marcus slept like a machine, 6 hours, deep, dreamless. But tonight, the silence in his penthouse was loud. He poured himself a glass of whiskey. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling window looking out over the city lights. He was the king of Chicago. Sterling Dynamics was posting record profits. The board of directors was flying in tomorrow morning for the quarterly review. They were going to give him a bonus that was larger than the lifetime earnings of everyone in his lobby combined. So why did he feel hollow? He took a sip of the amber liquid. He thought about the look on Sarah's face, not the fear. He was used to fear. It was the disappointment. She hadn't looked at him like a boss. She had looked at him like a human being who had failed a test. He shook his head. Weakness. That's what his father had called it. Empathy is a luxury for the poor, Marcus. Leaders do what is necessary. His father, Arthur Sterling, the man who built this empire from a garage on the South Side, the man who missed Marcus's graduation, his wedding, and his mother's funeral because he was building a legacy. Marcus had hated him for it, and then he had become him. He finished the drink in one swallow. Tomorrow, the board meeting. 8 a.m. sharp. He needed to be sharp. He needed to be ruthless. He needed to show them that the company was in safe hands. He went to bed, but the red numbers of the clock seemed to stare back at him from the nightstand. 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m. He got up, he showered, he put on his suit, the armor. He arrived at the office at 7:30 a.m. The office felt different today, quieter. His assistant wasn't at her desk yet. He walked into the boardroom. It was a massive room, a long table made of black glass, 12 chairs, but the chairs were empty, except one. At the head of the table sat a man. His back was to the door. He was looking at the large screen on the wall. Marcus frowned. The board members weren't due for 30 minutes. Excuse me. The meeting starts at 8. The chair slowly swiveled around. Marcus stopped walking. His breath caught in his throat. It wasn't just a board member. It was the chairman, the founder, Arthur Sterling, his father, but something was wrong. Arthur wasn't wearing his usual power suit. He was wearing a gray suit that looked a little too big, and he looked tired. "Hello, Marcus, Dad, I thought you were in Europe," the doctors said. "The doctors say a lot of things. Sit down." It wasn't a request. Marcus sat. He felt like a child again. He felt small. "I heard you had a busy morning yesterday." Arthur placed a folder on the glass table. "I handled a personnel issue, a secretary, chronic tardiness." "I made an example of her." "An example? Yes, you certainly did." Arthur picked up a remote control. "I want to show you something, Marcus. Consider this the only item on today's agenda." He pointed the remote at the screen. The screen flickered to life. It was black and white, grainy. A timestamp in the corner read, "Yesterday, 7:55 a.m. It was the parking garage." Marcus watched, confused. "What is this?" "Watch." On the screen, an old man walked into the frame. He stumbled. He grabbed a concrete pillar. He slid down to the ground. Marcus squinted. The old man looked familiar. Then a figure ran into the frame, a woman. She was running toward the elevators. She checked her watch. She was rushing, but when she saw the man, she stopped. She skid to a halt. She ran to him. She dropped her purse in a puddle. She knelt in the grease and grime. Marcus watched as the woman pulled pills from the man's pocket. He watched as she rubbed his back. He watched as she held his hand. The camera zoomed in. The woman was Sarah and the man. Marcus looked from the screen to the man sitting at the head of the table. The gray suit, the loose fit, "That was you." The room went silent. The only sound was the hum of the projector. Arthur nodded. "I wanted to come in early, surprise you, see how the empire was doing, but my heart, it had other plans." He tapped the screen. "Hundreds of people walked by me, Marcus. Executives, managers, your top performers. They stepped over me to get to the elevator. They didn't want to be late. They were terrified of you." Marcus felt a cold sweat break out on his neck, but she stopped. She knew she was going to be late. She knew the consequences, and she stopped anyway. Arthur leaned forward. His eyes were hard but wet. "She saved my life, son, and 10 minutes later, you fired her for it." Marcus felt like he had been punched in the gut. He looked at the screen, the image of Sarah kneeling in the dirt holding his father's hand. "I didn't know. She didn't tell me because you didn't let her." I watched the security footage of your office too. 2 minutes, Marcus. You didn't ask why, you didn't look at her, you just looked at the clock. Arthur stood up. He walked over to the window. I built this company on efficiency. I taught you that time is money. That was my mistake. I was wrong. He turned back to his son. Time isn't money, Marcus. Time is life. And yesterday that woman gave me more time. She gave you a father. He threw a file across the table. It slid across the glass and stopped right in front of Marcus. That's her termination paperwork, and that is my resignation letter. Marcus stared at the papers. Dad, no, one of us has to go, Marcus. Either the man who saves lives or the man who fires heroes. You choose. Arthur walked toward the door. He didn't look back. Fix it, or don't. But if she isn't sitting at that desk when I come back in an hour, there won't be a company left to run. The door closed. Marcus was alone. He looked at the screen. Sarah was helping his father stand up. She was brushing the dirt off his coat. He looked at the clock on the wall. 8:15 a.m. He stood up. He didn't grab his jacket. He didn't grab his briefcase. He ran. The apartment building was in a part of town Marcus had only seen on the news. Brick walls peeling paint. Bars on the windows. He climbed the 3 flights of stairs. The elevator was broken. He was out of breath. He was sweating. His Italian suit was out of place here. He found apartment 3B. He hesitated. For the first time in 10 years, Marcus Sterling was afraid. He knocked. Nothing. He knocked again, harder. Sarah, please, it's Marcus. A chain rattled. The door cracked open 3 inches. Sarah's eyes appeared. They were red, swollen. When she saw him, she tried to slam the door. Marcus jammed his expensive leather shoe in the gap. Wait, please, I'm not here to. I'm just here to talk. I don't have anything to say to you. I'll have my things picked up. Just leave us alone. It was my father. The door stopped moving. What? The man in the garage, the man you helped, that was my father. Sarah stared at him. The grip on the door loosened. He told me what you did. He told me that you stopped when no one else would. Sarah opened the door a little wider. A little boy was hiding behind her leg. He was holding an inhaler. Marcus looked at the boy. Then he looked at Sarah. He saw the fear in her eyes, the fear of eviction, the fear of hunger, the fear he had put there. He dropped to his knees. Right there in the hallway on the dirty linoleum floor, the CEO of Sterling Dynamics fell to his knees. I am sorry. He didn't say it like a boss. He said it like a man. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please come back. Sarah looked down at him. She looked confused. I can't be late again, Mr. Sterling. The bus, it's unreliable, and no more buses, and no more 8:05 cutoffs. I don't care if you come in at 10. I don't care if you come in at noon. Just come back. He reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out an envelope. It was the bonus check the board had prepared for him. He held it out. This is for Leo, for the inhalers, for everything. Sarah looked at the check. Her hand covered her mouth. Mr. Sterling, this is too much. I can't. It's not enough. It's nowhere near enough. You saved my father. You gave me a second chance. Sarah hesitated. Then slowly she opened the door all the way. She didn't take the check. Instead, she offered him her hand. Get up, Marcus. It was the first time she had used his first name. He took her hand. Her grip was strong, warm. He stood up. See you tomorrow. Sarah smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. I'll be there around 8ish. Marcus laughed. It was a sound he hadn't made in years. It felt rusty but good. 8ish sounds perfect. The next morning, the policy manual at Sterling Dynamics was different. Page 1 used to say, time is money. Now, it had a single sentence written in Marcus's own handwriting, we are people first. Marcus sat at his desk. The digital clock was gone, replaced by a picture frame. It was a photo taken just that morning. It was Marcus, his father Arthur, and Sarah. They were standing in the lobby. Arthur looked healthy. Sarah looked happy, and Marcus looked awake. The door opened. Sarah walked in. She was carrying 2 coffees. 8:10. Fire me. Marcus took the coffee. Get to work. She turned to leave. Sarah, she stopped. Yes, thank you. She nodded and walked out. Marcus turned his chair to the window. The rain had stopped. The sun was breaking through the clouds over Chicago. It was a new day, and for the first time in his life, Marcus Sterling wasn't watching the clock. He was just watching the world, and it was beautiful.